Good afternoon and good evening to all the attendees across Asia Pacific. We have Alemi with us from Postman, and he will kindly take us through the Postman platform and how it can be used during this hackathon, the Hack for Better Days. So with that introduction, it would be great, Alemi, if you can introduce yourself and take us through the webinar. Over to you.
Sure. Hey, Sam. Hey, everyone. I'm Alimi. I'm a developer advocate at Postman. And it's the early morning for me, but hopefully I'll be able to remember everything I was meant to show you. So what I'm going to try to go through today, and I think you've probably heard of the platform before, Postman. So I'm going to show you how you can use that not to get a finished product, but more like to get started and have like faster development for your apps, because it's a hackathon and it's always a matter of who can do the most the fastest way, but also the best way, right? And I think Postman is a good tool for that. So I do not have slides. So I'm just going to scroll through our website to start with. We call Postman the collaboration platform for API development. And because I believe we're all in teams and these teams may be spread around, again, I'll show you how you can collaborate in between places, do all that is version control, so fork, merge, pull request, etc., straight from the app. And the other thing that we have, numbers, we don't really care, but what Postman is used for, it's an API client. You can do automated testing, you can create documentation, monitor, and the workspaces where you're working. So what we're going to see mostly today is the API client part, which is just call APIs, see what they return, and see how you can import that into your own app. And the automated testing, so let's say you want to make sure your app is up 100% of the time or 99.99% of the time. You can test that straight from Postman, and if there's an error, then it's going to return an error to you, and you can check that. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it, and I'm just going to start with an overview of Postman. So for those of you who have not used Postman before, there's one main concept in Postman, which is collections. A collection is a group of endpoints that you can test. So let's say I create a new collection, and I'm going to call this one the here. And in this, I can put all my requests that I'm going to use. So let's say I want to actually try to just query the website. So I believe it would be here.com. So I've created a new endpoint, which is here. I can click on it. And now I can go, let me just double check so I don't go and check any other website. Oh, it is here.com. So I'll get this, go back to my Postman app and paste that here. And if I send this, it returns something. So obviously it's not an API endpoint, it's just a website that I queried. So it's going to return whatever the page is, so HTML, JavaScript, whatever. And I can actually see that page, like not beautified, but I can see what would be on that page. Now let's see and try some actual API. So what I'm going to go through now is how would you use the here APIs from Postman. Now I could use any random APIs, but I guess it makes more sense that I show you directly how you would use these APIs, because that's probably what you're going to go and use during the hack as well. So here has a developer portal right there, and documentation where you can find all their APIs. Sam, you stop me if I'm wrong, if I say anything that is not correct, but I think I spent some time on here, and I can look at the geocoding and search APIs. And one good thing with that, it gives you the documentation for the different SDKs, etc., but also for REST APIs, which is what you will do with Postman. So if I click here, I can access the geocoding and search API. And here's the documentation. So it tells you there's a quick start guide, sorry, there's endpoints, this is different endpoints. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go straight to the API reference at the top right. And I'm going to cheat a bit and just get the Open API specification here. So what I can do with that, just copy paste the whole thing, go back to Postman and say import. Now I can paste raw text, paste the Open API definition, and just paste it. copy it and import. Import as an API, generate as Postman collection. This one is the one that I'm interested in because I'm gonna write test and try it out. And by doing this, now I have that new collection with all the endpoints that were in this specification. So I don't have to create them myself. It does it automatically from the OpenAPI specification, which is pretty cool. But it's not enough. Obviously, if I go here and try to call that endpoint, it's probably going to complain and say, I'm not allowed. That's because you need to authenticate to your here developer account. So again, I'm going to go back to the developer portal, and they actually have that page that explains exactly how you're going to authenticate to your account using Postman. So all of this I'm going to share right after the webinar in the Ask a Mentor channel. So don't try to get all the URLs while I'm talking. Just wait a bit, and then I can share that to you later on. So let's go through this. I'm gonna put it on the side and put Postman here. So what does it say? Get Postman. So I already have Postman, which is a good start. I'm gonna create a new endpoint. So new request. I'm gonna call it auth. I'm gonna save it to the same one. It says change the HTTP method to post and use that URL. So I'm gonna go here, change the method to post. So as you can see, you can do a lot of different ones. There's anything that is REST, basically, you can do it here. If you had to do a delete from your database, you can just use the delete endpoint, but here we're gonna do post and add this. Now select the authorization tab. That's where you could set up, so for this one, it's auth 1.0, but we have a lot of other ones. Let's say you use AWS, you can do AWS signature right from here. If it's API key, you can also do it from here. For this one, we're going to look at auth 1.0. Ensure the add authorization data is to request headers. I'm going to do that. And then we're going to put consumer key and consumer secret that I get from my developer account. So you can get these by, and I believe you've probably seen that before, going to your projects in here, and in REST, you're going to go in create credentials for auth 2.0 here on your app. And okay, so it's a bit of a weird display, so let me just do that. So this is going to be my consumer key. You can paste it here. And this is going to be my consumer secret. It's good it's being hidden, then you can't actually call it instead of me. And going back to the Postman page, it says, so we've done that. We've done the consumer secret, and we just want to check that SHA 256 is here. Now that is done, I can go to my body tab, select the X form, and put a new key of grant type and value client credentials. Send this, and hopefully got it right the first try, and I'm getting an access token here. So this is what I'm now going to be able to use in all of these other ones. This access token is valid for 24 hours, I believe. So let's keep this this request here, and every 24 hours you can just send it again and get a new token. So the idea here, one thing you can do instead of having to copy paste this access token every time, you can use the environment. So at the top right here, you have environments. I have a lot. You will have no environment when you start with Postman. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new one, and I'm gonna call it here hack, and I'm gonna call that variable access token with the value of the access token that we were just given. So what this does is this access token, I can now use it from any other endpoint. So if I go to the reverse geocode endpoint, for example, an authorization, so the documentation says now I can, for any other request, I can go to bearer token and put the token. So I can select bearer token, and here I can use the variables, which was access. Oh, wait, I need to select the right environment first. So here, ACK, now have it. And you can see access token here. And that's it. That's all I have to do. So now, anytime it expires, I can just restart this one, and this variable is going to be updated. So let's look at the params for that API endpoint. Requires an at, which is coordinates, lang, which is not required, and defaults to English. So I'm just going to untick that. I don't need to send it. And the maximum number of results. So let's get 10 results. Again, this was all imported from the OpenAPI. I didn't have to do anything. Documentation as well, description, so I can just read through. It's very easy to use. So while I was trying to prepare this talk yesterday, I realized it's very hard to find coordinates that return something. Somehow the Earth is mostly water, and I learned that the hard way. So I've got coordinates that I'm just going to copy paste here. And what this returns is a list of items with the title. So this is the street, this is in Spain, with address, country code, country name, etc. So hopefully it wasn't too much talking, enough demoing that you can know how to call the here APIs from Postman, and gives you a quick overview of Postman. But obviously I'm not just going to stop here, because I want to show some more value that you can add to Postman. So I'm going to just do some clearing here. And one other thing that we actually offer, and that our team has been working on over the last, probably over the last month, is the COVID-19 API Resource Center. So let me just get the right page up. That's the one. And so I was attending I was actually joined a bit later in the call right before with Raymond Camden. And one of the person in the questions at the end asked about data sets and data sources. So that's actually exactly what that is. If you go to covid-19-apis.postman.com, again, I'll share that later, so you don't have to go there right away. There's a long list of APIs that you can call, and that gives you a lot of data. So from the WHO, from the CDC, and the one that I'm going to use now is this one, because it's pretty complete in the sense that it has all countries from all around the world, all the number of cases, all the number of recovered cases, etc. So if you go to that website, you can just click on any of them, and there's two options. First one is see the documentation. So if you click on that, it's gonna open a new page, and you can see different endpoints on the left. You can see how you would call them, the endpoint URL, an example of response, etc., etc. And the other option is just click run in Postman, and what this does, it's going to open Postman for you, and it's going to do the same as I did with the here. Basically, just create a new collection with all the endpoints already here and ready to use. So now it's probably going to start making sense. I've used the browse reverse geocode endpoint, and I've gotten, just from coordinates, I've gotten a country, right? So now I can go to this API, the COVID-19 specific one, and I can look at the endpoint, which is specific country, for example, and I can see, let's say, so how does this work? You need to say if you want the data from yesterday, you need to see if you want strict or fuzzy search countries. So if you, for example, type Oman in Romania, it's going to both return them. And you have a query. So the query is the value of the country. And this could be, for example, the country code for Spain. If I send that, gives me the number of cases, the number of cases today, number of death today, number of people that recovered, a lot of data, right? And I would advise you that you get these ones or any other API that you may be interested in too, and look at all the endpoints, because that's one of them. There's plenty of other things that you can explore here. So that's cool, right? Like, just from the country code, I can get a lot of data. And let's say for your app, the use case is the username can just enter, or like use that geolocation and say, oh, how many cases there are around me, or like in the country that I'm in, then you could just kind of pair these two APIs. So get the location and then send it to here, right? One way to automate that is again using the environment variable. So I'm going to go back to reverse geocode, and I'm going to show you how you can get any response from an API and just set it here. So to do that, you can use the test script, and basically anything that is in this test window is going to be executed right after the endpoint has been called. So one thing you can use is the pm.response.json API, and what the value of this is whatever comes back from this API call. So if I store that in a variable, let's say response, I can then log it somewhere and see what's in there. So just like you would do in Node.js, like if you had an Express server or something, you can just log that in the backend. So that's my response, and the value is response. For those of you who are familiar with JavaScript, it's going to sound very easy. For those of you who are not, JavaScript is the default language we use in all of Postman, and the testing framework that we use is Chai.js. But if you have any questions in what you can do in here, you can reach out to me again, and I'll be very happy to help. So I've saved my response from the API, and I've just logged it. So now if I send this, I can go to the console here at the bottom left, and hopefully have a response here with items, and this is exactly what I had in the window, right? So the thing that I want to get is probably the country code. So let's see how that looks. Oop. That would be let country code response dot. That would be my response dot address dot country code, maybe. But this is an array, so it would be response of 0. And that I'm not sure at all, so I'm again going to use the console log. If I could type, that would help. Okay, let me clear the console and send that again. Cannot read property address of undefined. Let's see why. Yep. So items, did not mistype it. So that's the live demo effect, which is fair enough. Probably I should have tried that before. What if I try this? Okay, so now you can't read country code. Country is undefined. Interesting. So if you bear with me for 2 minutes, I'm going to try and feel, oh, that's my bad. It's called items first. Response to items of 0. Okay, cool. So I was just missing that which was at the very top, and I somehow missed. So I've got my response dot the first item in the items array, address, and dot country code. So that should return yes. So that's exactly what I want, right? Now I can use the PM API again and say environment.set, just like you would do with global variables in, I was going to say in Node-RED, but it may not be known for a lot of people. So I'm going to set a variable, which is going to be called country code, and it's going to be this value, right? So if I send this, I can look at my environment here, and you can see country code is set to Spain, right? So go back to my COVID-19 API. And here I'm going to replace this with country code. So again, now that's going to be generated automatically from the environment, and you can see the value is already ESP. Same result. And let's say I were to look for another code here. So let me just Google that quickly. Let's get the coordinates of Sydney, for example. So it says is 33.8 and 151.2. So hopefully that's going to return something. Sometimes it's just like not on an actual street. Okay, so it doesn't return something. And as you can tell, like the tests failed because obviously items.address is not a thing. Let's try this one. No result. Okay, so that's the tricky part where I have to find another like coordinates. And I can try 33.8 and okay, so will you believe me that I could put another coordinates here and it would work? But for now, we'll stick to the Spanish one, which sets it there and works. So that's fine. That works as designed. If I knew coordinates, it would work better, but it still works. The other thing that I talked about at the beginning was testing your APIs to make sure they're working, right? So one thing you can do as well with the tests is testing that it returns, for example, your endpoint always returns 200. So I don't actually know how to write that, so I can look at the snippets on the right. And you can see this one, which is snippet of code for status code is 200. So now if I send that request again, I have test results here. It's going to tell me status code is 200. Very nice. Let's say I were to alter that URL and say, oh, this is this. Now my test result is going to fail because it can't find this, obviously. So if I comment this, status code is not 200, and the expected response was to have 200, but it got 404 because obviously this doesn't exist, right? Cool. So one thing that I really want to show now, I went into details very fast, so I'm going to go back a bit higher up and say, you've created an API test here and you are happy with what you have, but now you want to put that in your app, right? Like it's cool to use Postman, helps you test your API endpoints, but at the end of the day, it doesn't code for you, right? But what if it did? One thing you can actually do once you have an API endpoint like this that you're happy with, you can click at code here. It's a bit small, we should probably put it bigger. But what this does is actually generates the code in many languages, and you can just copy paste this in your app. So let's say I were to take the curl, I can just copy paste this in my terminal and send that. Let's say you have a Node.js app, you can click Node.js and just copy paste this in your app, and it's going to do the exact same code that you had in Postman. If you're using Python, again, same thing. This would be the code for Python. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff here, and that's where I think you take a lot of value from Postman, because it's not time wasted on Postman because you don't have to redo the whole thing on your app. You basically create your scenario in Postman, test your different endpoints, chain your requests, but once you're done, you can just get the code and put it in your app, which is pretty handy. Okay, so that is for the Postman kind of overview. Now, one thing that I want to show is collaborating, right? So I've created this, and now I'm part of a team, right? You'll be part of a team during this hack, and you will want to share that with other people. So let's say you have your front-end devs, you have your back-end devs, you want to share these different scenarios with them. So the front-end dev can already integrate the API, back-end dev knows what it's supposed to return. And to do that, you can use team workspaces. So everything that I'm showing now is available on the free tier of Postman. You don't need to pay for anything. So I can go to my team, I can go to, Dunder Mifflin, because as you can tell, I am Michael Scott here, and I have all my crew at the top ready to help. So I've created the same thing here. It's what I've done in the other account, but it's just pre-made, so I don't have to redo it. So one thing you can do, if you different people to work on the same project, I could create a fork of that one, and I can say that's the new endpoint fork. Just like if you're used to Git, it's gonna create a new fork, and you can work in this. You can do, I could change the reverse geocode to something else, to be 7.8. And once you're done with your modification, you can go back to here and say, either you can just merge if you have the rights on both collections, but the better practice would be to create a pull request. So what this does, this is going to open, it's open on my other screen. So this is going to open a new page, and it says, this is your source, this is your destination, these are the changes that you've made. So you can see I've changed that and replaced with 7 and 8. And I can say changed coordinates. And I can add a reviewer. So I can add Jim and create a pull request. So now if I switch to Jim, Jim is going to have, let's see. Oh, I need to change here. So if I switch to Jim, which I don't have on that account, bear with me one sec, just need to find the URL for the pull request. So it sent me an email. So I'm just going to go and check my emails, but I don't want to display my emails on the side. Cool. So I got an email that says there's been a pull request on your collection. This is the author. You're the reviewer. You can see the changes, and I could make comments and say it doesn't look good or that looks good. And because it looks good, I can just approve and merge. And these are the three options that happen. So I can just merge the changes, I can merge the change, and if there were new changes on the master, then I can merge them back into the source, or I can just merge changes and delete the source. So I'm gonna go ahead and just merge the changes. Cool, the PR has been merged. So if I go back to Postman and open the master collection and go to browse, reverse geocode, there's a conflict. Yep. So open it again. Yeah, so it's been updated. And now it's the 7 and 8 coordinates that I have here that my colleague had done in the background. Another way to collaborate, if let's say you don't want to use the teams, or for some reason someone doesn't want to create a Postman account. So if you don't have a Postman account, you can still use Postman, which is fine. So you could share that with them just going here. You can click share, and you have different way to do it. So the workspace would require an account, but you can also just get a public link. And this is actually just the collection in JSON format, so you can copy this link. And if I open that on my browser, that's the collection. So you could just copy paste that, or you can go, the other user could go to their Postman account, to their personal workspace, click import from link, paste the link that you send them, and I can just import. So obviously it already exists, so I'm just gonna import it as a copy, and it would be here. Cool. So I've talked about a lot of stuff in Postman, and now let's go out of Postman. We'd go back to the browser, and I'm going to talk about a few more things that I want you to be aware of that I think could be useful for the hack. So again, this one, a lot of data in here. So most of these collections have been created by me or other Postman colleagues. Some of them are already maintained by the creators. If you have one that is not in there and that you would like to add, let me know as well. We can get it on that page. There is quite a few that are India specific. I don't know if we have like APAC specific ones, but a lot of them are just worldwide. So you will find any data for the country where you live in or like stuff surrounding you. This is here. I think you've been talked about it before and you have more workshops about it. The other thing that I want to talk about is the API network. So I've showed you how to use the here APIs. I've showed you how to use the COVID-19 ones, but there's a lot of other APIs that you may want to use into your app. And some of them may already have a collection that you can just import. And again, you don't have to create it all yourself. So let's say you would want to get alerts from Twitter. You can just go to the API network. And again, I'm going to share that link later and search for Twitter. And there's a Twitter collection here. You can click on it, view the documentation. It has all the endpoints that you need. And you can also just run it in Postman the same way that I've done for the other ones. Opens in Postman. I could do whichever modification. So let's say get a user. Once I'm done with my request, again, get the code for it, put it in my app. Pretty easy. And the last thing I think I want you to be aware of, there's one that you may not be aware of, and I think you've already had the IBM Cloud workshop as well. IBM Cloud has a Postman collection. If you go to that link, ibm.biz/IBM Cloud help, there's a running Postman button that you can use. Same thing, open in Postman, and now you have an IBM Cloud collection with a lot of stuff to play with their services. For example, their chatbot service is here. They have few platform services that you can manage from here. And all of this, you can do it straight from the app as well. So when you click new at the top left, you have access to templates and API network. And let's say I've talked about IBM Cloud, so full disclaimer, I was working at IBM before, but you may want to use another platform. Let's say you want to use Azure. There's also collections for Azure. There's collections for a lot of services out there. I think we have like, I don't know how many thousands of collection, but oh yeah, there you go, 4,000. So there's probably something out there for you to use in your app. And with that said, I'm finishing a bit early or earlier than planned, but if there are any questions, please go ahead, and I'm just gonna move back to here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Arlemi. It was
Doris?
very useful and insightful for using Postman platform. I'm sure,
Hopefully.
yeah, absolutely. Like, I really enjoyed it personally. I can't see any questions posted in the question panel, but let me see from the attendees. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and I can allow you to speak up.
If there isn't, again, I'll be on the Slack pretty much. So I'm based in the UK, so probably not the best times for you to help, but anytime late evening or early morning for people in APAC, I'll be online and happy to help. So do not hesitate to reach out. I'm Arlemy on Slack, so you can. There's an Ask a Mentor channel, right? That they can use, and then
Yes.
or DM me. So do attendees have to go through the Ask a Mentor channel, or can they DM me straight away as well?
It depends on how comfortable they are. They can direct message you whenever they want. Yeah, you're listed in the list of the.
Yep.
So you should be fine. Yeah, okay. I don't see any questions raised here. So yeah, if there's anything you can connect with and ask your questions there. All right. With that, if any final remarks, close the webinar.
I think final remark is good luck to all the attendees. I think this is a great hackathon, and even though like using Postman, I would recommend to do it. It's not mandatory, but really check out this. Even if you don't use Postman, these are like great data sets and data resources that you can use. So I would definitely recommend at least checking this one out.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Olemi. And with that, I'm going to close the webinar. Good luck to you all.
Good luck.
See you in the next
Bye-bye.
webinar. All right.